Hello, welcome back. So in today's video, we're just going to look at multi-step form and wizard forms using Next.js and Redux. And I want to show you the demo of the app that we are going to build in this video. Okay, so this is a multi-step form. You might be familiar with this architecture, or you have seen such a kind of similar form whereby you have the current step. Okay, you can see right now step 1 is active, personal info, and you are seeing the heading and the title here. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and fill in the information using this extension fake filler, and then we can just go. By the way, it has, if you don't fill in any information, okay, we are using React hook form for validation. If I click on next, you can see all this data is required. I can go ahead and fill in all this data. Okay, then I can click next. Okay, and I can just go ahead and fill in also this. Click in fake filler, go to next. Now if I forgot something, for instance on step number 2 or step number 1, if I go on previous, you can see I still have the data in my state. I have all the data in the state. For instance, I can change the level of education and I put university. Okay, and then I can continue to the next step and fill in the information here and go next. Now we are on step 4. I can just add maybe C++, click next. I'm on these technical skills now. I can go ahead and answer this, and then if I want to change, I can go to previous or I can go to next. Now let's go to the submit. You can see this last step is getting all this data, and now we are ready to submit it. If I click on save and continue, you can see I have all the data. Okay, I have all the data here, and now you can see when this button now I've changed it to confirm and submit. Okay, where we have all this data, and you can see I can go, for instance, and change something. I can still go to previous, and maybe I can change here the rank to maybe to intermediate, and then maybe just get save and continue. And now at this point here, you can see the rank has changed to intermediate. Okay, so this is the app we are going to build using Next.js 14 plus Redux. Okay, thank you. Let's just jump in and see how to implement it. Hello, welcome everyone. In today's video, we're just going to look at multi-step forms, or what so many people call wizard forms. If you have if you have used the web enough, at least you have come across this kind of forms. Okay, and even in many projects we have built, we have come up with so many big long forms like these ones. Okay, where a user have to fill in all this, okay, at once. This is a common architecture. If you just check many websites, they still use these long forms. Okay, but in the recent trends, or in these days when you are building for modern applications, you will see that the most trend these days is to use the wizard forms, or the step-by-step forms, and this is to improve on form compression, avoid drudgery, and all that kind of cases that you find with this kind of forms. I know even you, if you have filled this form, this is one of the most frustrating forms. Most times when you are filling and you make a mistake, all the data is lost, or if you come back and did not complete the form, you have to start afresh. There is a lot of problems while using this kind of form. Okay, and in today's video, you're going to look at how do we break these long forms into actually a nice step-by-step form, and how would you handle that complex scenario, more specific in Next.js, or while you are building your web application. So some of the examples, like for this math step form, if you can check, I've put these examples. I will show you. I have a list of these examples. You can look up to and maybe borrow the inspiration of the design. But these are most common scenarios. Okay, these are most common scenarios. How the app most of the times goes. You look at this is really a most common trend. You're going to give you the use cases where these forms, multi-step forms, where they are used. But this is a very most commonly used component on most of the website these days. Okay, so there is this kind of design. You have seen this one whereby you fill in and they keep on changing the steps here. They show you nicely which step you are on, or they show you the remaining steps. Okay, they show you all these remaining steps. You can see another example is here. Okay, another example is here. You can see here why you have these nice stuff here going on here. Okay, we have now a more complex scenarios, and I think this is also the most common use case. Okay, now when the steps are really so many, you need to attain this kind of design. Okay, I've seen this for schools, universities, portals, and so many others when they are just doing like an onboarding process. Either they are registering new students, or it is a job application, or they are filling in new employees, or you are going to do anything that it requires really a huge amount of data. This is the architecture of the design they normally use. Okay, you need to show very few inputs. Okay, they need to show very few inputs for the user to keep them motivated while they are filling, and avoid really gradually and feeling overwhelmed by the amount of information you need from them. So you break this by breaking the form into multiple steps, and then you accurately put few steps, few form fields in each step, and this you will see that it will tremendously increase a lot of form completion and people feeling really nice. Another thing is to make sure that if someone stops at on the way, they can resume back from where they stopped. Okay, and you're going to see it is very common with like these government this when you're applying for like passport. This is for e-passport for this country I am from, Uganda. So you can just go and check, by the way, the passport application process for your country. Look at that information and how they handled. When I'm just using the web, don't just use the web. Look at the patterns and also learn from those patterns, so that you actually be a very good web developer. So you can see this, how they put this was really a nice way. I really like this kind of version, how they do it. Now you can see in more complex scenarios like this one, you have to save the data, and that is going to be the most scenario. If the form has like 2 steps, that is very okay. Not save each step in the database, but most of the times actually you will find that some of these steps are actually saved in the database. Okay, you save each, like when someone applies this first section, this section is actually saved right away, because they can actually stop onto this and they can resume the next day. And by the way, if you want to see that, if you go for instance onto this website, you can see they have already catered for people who want to resume. For instance, you can resume your saved application and resume from somewhere, and they can find your application and they know which step you are on, and they will resume from that, so that you continue filling in the information. So that is like a more practical scenario, or a more complex scenario, and I'm just going to show you how you would actually cater for something like this. And having said that, I would want to challenge you to build a clone for your passport for your country. Just go and try, look at the form. I know it will be a very huge form, and break it down into multiple steps and go ahead and try to actually work on it. Okay, I'm not going to work on to this one. I'm just going to work on maybe a less small example in this video, but I just want to challenge you to go and try it. And maybe you could show us what you come up with in the group. We have our group of developers in so endeavor to join the group in the you'll find the link in the description. Some other forms, these you can see others have few steps. Okay, others have these few steps. After, for instance, you sign up, or you have these really few steps. Like you can have 3 steps if you, and by the way, the number of steps also dictate the number of steps you have, also dictate the mode of design you are going to use. Okay, if you have few steps, I think this is a more a more nice way of doing it. If you have few steps, you can use this kind of design where you have like your steps spaced out very well on the side. But sometimes you can find you have actually really many steps, and you might actually end up considering using something like this. Okay, if you have really, like if you are building a web portal or you are building for a school, you might just need to consider something like this rather than like this. Okay, so you see that this is a common architecture that we always use. I'm giving you this one to give you the ideas on how you would think of designing your own form. Okay, and by the way, all these ones I will just put them in here. You'll find all these examples I was talking about, you'll find them here, so that you can actually have a look, and maybe you can get inspiration to design one of your case. Okay, so after this, you get one example and you apply it, and maybe you send it in the group to show us what you have built. I would be really happy to see what you have achieved to build in this tutorial. So the use cases here, if you're just using user registration and the onboarding processes, you can see a scenario here is an online platform that requires user registration and onboarding for personalized experience. Breaking down the registration process into steps can reduce user fatigue and make it less overwhelming. Collecting information progressively allows for smooth onboarding experience. So make sure if you're having any onboarding experience, at least to include a multi-step form. E-commerce checkout, and we are going to use also in our e-commerce, we are going to use in and this is the reason why, by the way, I made this video also, because I wanted to use it in the multi-vendor e-commerce we are building currently. If you have not watched it, by the way, go and check it out. I want to include the checkout experience, and I want to use a multi-step form, and it would be good to know how to handle it separately, so that by the time we reach in that case, we know exactly what to do. And like if you have like job application portals, client onboarding for service providers, survey and feedback forms, all these ones you can use the multi-step form or wizard forms. Okay, yeah, and there are so many scenarios you can use this, but the benefits in each case, the goal is to simplify the complex processes, reduce user fatigue, and improve overall experience. And this also for people who are working, if you're working with a company and maybe you have been having like the form, a long form, this can be a form of improvement. You can improve the form, convert it from the long form into a multi-step form or wizard form, and you show your supervisors how you have improved the onboarding process for the clients. Okay, So in this example I want to do today, I want to try to build one onboarding for my students. Just a second. So as I was saying, in today's example, we're just going to build for the onboarding students, where we are going to gather the personal information, education background, programming experience, preferred programming languages, technical skills, availability and commitment, and what. And you can easily get these kind of steps if you use ChatGPT. I always don't shy away to show you how I do my things. Like right now, try to use AI to do some simple tasks. Say coming up with this list of steps. You can see I gave it a prompt here to go ahead and gives me the math step. You can see my prompt here. Let me show you. I want to do onboarding multiple step form. I can use to enroll programming students or new intern students for my coding school. Can you give me the form steps? And I need inputs for each step. So this is really good. You can go ahead and generate like this. And then for any service you are doing, it can be service providers or anything. First generate the number of steps, so that you don't have to think really so much about this. Okay, yeah. And I came up with these kind of steps. I might not do all of them, but this is to show you how things might actually start getting and how we can just build this from scratch. Okay, so I'm not sure which design I should adopt. Okay, I'm not sure which design, because these ones can be really so many. I don't think I will need this terms and accepting of terms and condition policy. We can just like put them. You never know, terms and conditions, but I may just not add this step. I'll just add the try to get to summarize it. Additional information or comments, goals. Okay, so we are going to see how we just convert into this. The most important thing is to have the steps, and then later on you can just like really have this converted into. So I think I'm just going to adopt either this. Okay, we can just adopt this while we have these steps here. Okay, you might just like adopt this whereby we have on the sidebar we have a step, and then the title of the step and all that kind of cases. And we're going to use Redux. So as you know, I always start my projects from scratch sometimes, in most cases, to make sure for you to understand. So I'm just going to create here a new page. So this is a new project. You can see on localhost 3000 is a new project, and I'm just going to create a new page simply because I want to actually transfer this later on to use it in my actual project, like in for student, like really student enrollment. So I'm just going to create a new folder here called student onboarding. Okay, student onboarding as that, and then just create a new file called page.jsx, and I'm just going to say rfc just like this. Just write rfc. Come on, rfc. Let me first close this. Okay, so it has worked. It has done it twice. Let me just do it. Okay, so now we have this onboarding student onboarding, just like that page. Okay, student onboarding page, and here let me just first put h2 students onboarding form. Okay, and there's some people who just who normally tell me that sometimes the videos are long, but for sure, to be sincere, is that I prefer well explained videos. I taught myself programming, and in most cases, even me, I used like short videos. But if you really want to get the practical skills, someone must be explaining at a reasonable pace, and also doing more practical things for you to be able to do your own projects. I don't think if just like I did a whole e-commerce within like 1 hour and you tell me that you're going to understand how it is done, I don't really believe that. I want you to change the architecture of learning, start feeling comfortable with really content and really learn. Because I remember, I think there is time I watched a course with about maybe 200 hours and I finished it. So you have to be really comfortable with learning, okay? So some people normally tell me that they find it hard to watch long videos, but really if you start taking care, stop looking at the video, start thinking about you finishing the project, okay? Finishing the project and learning that skill. Student onboarding. Student onboarding. Okay, so just go ahead and work on the styles. Just come here and remove everything here. Okay, just remove everything, and then you can maybe just say body, and you can just go and give it a min height of 100 VH. You could just do this if you never wanted to write that line. You could just still go in the layout, okay, here in the layout, and then on the body you can give it here. But since there is always this interclass, I just want to just like find it very easy for me to actually just do body here, and then I write only one line saying min height of 100 view height, and this always simplifies this process to make this one look nice. Okay, so the first thing, we're just going to adopt this design, and then we plug in our own steps. Okay, so if you think about this design here, we have this background color. Okay, we have this background color. So the architecture is, we have this, and then in the middle we have our card container, which is containing the form. It has two things. It has the steps, and it also has the a form at that point. And I'm just going to show, if you just went and searched about this smart step form on YouTube, there are so many videos which come, and really I've watched all those videos, and there is no any one video that actually explains it at a practical basis. Most of them, they are using really a simple scenario, and the actual scenario on the practical basis, as I've shown you here, it is really more complicated to handle, and it is going to form the basis on the approach I'm going to take while actually working on to this one. I'm going to give you the approach that you can use so that you can save either a particular step, or you can even go ahead and at the end of the day save all this information in the database. And of course, you're just going to use Redux, and that is to implement it at large scale, and also to increase on your Redux skills on how you can use this particular thing. So it has this this card, and in this card on the left we have the steps. So this is a separate component like for steps, and then we have this one. I can call this one a form step, because this is a form corresponding to a particular step. As you can say, for instance, add zone. This is the add zone form. If I went back, this is the select plan form, and then we have like go back. This is the info or personal info form. So using this kind of approach, we will have to have the background, okay, meaning that I would have something like this. Let me show you. I would have something like this. Let me show you. So I would go to the page here, and I would actually have something like this. Let me first show you. So we could have the, let me copy this to simplify this step. I just want the return, just like this. I might just not write all these styles. You'll find them. The references I will be using, will be just referencing them from here. Okay, so I can just have the steps and also the step form. As you can see here, yes, we're going to create them, these ones, in a minute. But we can have this. You can see BG blue with a min height screen with a padding 4. This is this blue, the blue background. And then I go ahead and I put this card container. So this card container is this one, whereby I have this max width of 5XL. I have padding and the BG white with a border, okay, rounded LG and all that kind of stuff. And then I have the steps, okay, I have the steps, and this is the steps, these ones. And then I have this form step. As you can see here, I've called it form step. And these two, I have used a grid, and I find it very easy to work with the grid because I can make this 2 columns or 1 column depending on what I want. Okay, so this is why I use the grid, and I always give it grid colors 12. If you just check here, there are 12 columns. And then the first one, I always give it in the first one I always give it like 4 columns, and then maybe this one I give it 8 columns. Okay, so let me just go ahead and create these two things, the 2 components. The one that is going to hold our sidebar steps, and the second one is going to hold a particular form for each step. You assume that for each step we are going to have 1 form. So I can just go ahead and create those 2 components. And in the components, I have already my form inputs. Okay, there is a time like where I have these build form inputs. I'm just going to talk about that one when we reach that point. But for now, let's go ahead and create a new component, and I'm just going to call this steps. And I would prefer to first call right inside these components. I'm just going to create a new folder, call it step, okay, step form, just like this, because I want to put everything related to this step form. I put them in one thing, and this will help me when I'm working with reusability. If I want to use it in another website, I simply copy this folder. Okay, I simply copy this folder, and it will be easy for me. So the first thing I'm just going to do, I'm just going to create steps.jsx and just do RFC. Okay, just like that, and I can just put here h2, sorry, and I say steps, and then I also just going to have the form step, and I don't know what did I call it. Is it step? It is step form. Okay, just come here and let's create another one called step form, and this one specifically is going to hold is going to render a form. RFC is going to render a form depending on which step we are on. Let me just put here the form here. Okay, so if we just go ahead and plug in these components, okay, before passing in the steps, of course this one is going to be taking the steps. Make sure to import it on top there, and let's also import the step form just like this. And in this step form, as you can see, this one, we have to have it also to have if you check what we have right now, we have this a nice background with a nice card nicely centered. Okay, and we have two things in between. As we have seen, we have this the left thing for the steps, and then this one that is going to hold the form, and later on we are going to have these navigation buttons for each individual form. It will have this. So the science behind I'm going to use, I want to have each individual form is going to be actually an actual form. Okay, I want this for each individual form to be a form, so that one we can handle, if you just refresh this one, so that we can handle validation easily. That's the first thing. If we make each individual form, you're going to see that it is going to simplify our life in terms of saving a particular step, and also making sure you see, like for instance here, you can see all these fields are required. Okay, all these fields are required, and we are going to handle this as a single form, like on its own, so that when we click like next, and this will trigger, either you can save this information right away to the database. You can imagine if we are using a React hook form, and on clicking next, we fetch all this data, all this information, and then we can either decide we can update it in our Redux, or you can even go ahead and save this right away to the database, so that if someone stopped on this stage, you still have this information for them and they can resume from there. Okay, that's great. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and continue with this. So the thing I'm just going to build out is this. Let's build out the steps. So to build out the steps, I'm just going to go down here. Okay, the first thing is that we have to create the steps. We have an array for the steps, and we are going to see, I'm just going to keep it simple so that you can understand. So for instance, I can just go on top on here, and I create an array for the steps. So you can just say const. Okay, let me just go ahead and just get this on top here. So I have this array for the steps, so you can just go ahead and plug it in here. And I always do these things step by step, so that you know how I'm doing each step, rather than having all the code written out, because at this point I expect you to be knowing how to create arrays, how to write some simple tailwind. Okay, so as we have the step, I have each step has a number and has a title. So if I just go ahead and I put for our scenario, where is my notes on top here? We have so many steps. Let me just go here. I have step number 1. Let me try to do this. This is a step where you plug in your own steps, and you go ahead and also design. So I have this personal information. Okay, personal information, and you could just say personal info. Okay, personal info for the purposes of shortening the heading. The second one is education, so I'm just going to say education background. Maybe here we say your education. I feel like this is really a long one. Education. Just put the education. And we can just go have here. Then we have this programming experience. Okay. Programming experience. Just like that. Education. And we could just like leave them actually just like long. I want to see how we are going to handle this also. If you have these long ones like these ones, how we're going to handle them. Then we have preferred programming languages. Okay, step number 4. Okay, just duplicate this many times. I'm not sure if we're just going to do all of them. We might just not do. I might just like stop on the way. Really like technical skill assessment. Okay, I'm just going to stop on that one. For this one is 5. Okay, for interest of time, I will stop like on that. Then I just say go and put the second last, this one where we have submit and confirmation. Okay, so you can just come here and preferred programming language, technical skill assessment, and then finally let's put this. Okay, and let me just remove this step, put this one as step number 6. Okay, so we have all these steps. I have all my steps here. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and write out apply these steps, because after getting these steps we can pass them as a prop to the steps here so that they can be rendered onto the UI. So if you just go back here, you can just go ahead and update the steps component to this. So let me just go ahead and update the steps component. So go to the steps component here, like this. And now we have the steps and we are passing in the steps as a prop. Okay, and then we get these steps and then we can go ahead and map through them, and then we have now a single step. So I'm just going to create how a single step looks like. So inside here, see, go ahead and create a new file, call it step, step, just like that, step.jsx, and then say rfc. And for a single step, we can just also go ahead and fill out this for this step, the step component. Okay, and in the step component, really what we are rendering is, let me just go ahead and remove some of these things that we have not added. So let me just say, for purposes of avoiding error, let me put current step to be 1. Okay, so if you look at the step, the only thing we just want from the step, from the design, is for each step we have a number, and then we have also the title. So there are the two information, and you can just go ahead and design your step according to your form. Other forms, they just only have a title. You can see like this one has only a title. Other forms can have icons. Let me show you. So you can see like this step here. The step has an icon. This step has an icon. Okay, this step has an icon. So you can also just go ahead and say maybe step has a number, has an icon, and also have maybe the heading. Okay, so it doesn't matter how you structure your form. For this particular case, for each step, if you just go here, you see that each step had if I just go to the page, you can see that in our steps we have catered for the number and the title of the step, and then we go ahead and then send these steps here. So you can say steps, then just simply send these steps here like this. So you send the steps to this. Okay, after reaching into this step here, we have our steps, and I just go ahead and then I will map through them. And you can see here I have this rounded code span full, and this code span full is for small devices. On small devices, you can see that this form changes if you just press like F12, and you see that this changes here how the form looks like. You can see like, yeah, the form looks like really nice. Okay, so you can just go ahead and make it responsive. Take your time and make it responsive. Okay, and on this we have flex. You can see on small they become into flex. Then you just simply map them, and then we bring the step, and then the step, of course, we pass in a single step. So after reaching in this step, we extract the number and the title. You don't need to do this step if you never wanted. You could just go ahead and then check. So why we need the current step at this point, you can see that right now if the current step is 1, you can see 1 is the one which is having the active class, is having this background here. Okay, this, you can see the background here has changed. You could go even and change the title to show that you are on to this. Okay, and I'm using this current step. You can see stop current step. Current step is if the current step, for instance, is 1. You can see I'm just scattering this and saying you apply all this one. You can see I have width here, text slate, border, blah blah, and then this is this, by the way, this rounded thing here. Okay, and then I'm just saying on if the number is equal to the current step, we apply budget 300, border 0. You could even go ahead and do other things. Okay, for instance, we could even change using this same thing. We could have changed the color. Okay, we could have changed the color. Let me see if we change the color, what happens. Like text blue 300. Like, how does it look like? We already have text white. Let me just first remove this to see how would this look like. Oh, it looks really terrible. Okay, just like that. So you can see I have all the steps. Okay, I have all the steps, and just going to work onto this to look nice. This font size is really big, but we have all the steps, and if the current step is 1, for instance, or if I just say 2, you realize that now 2 is going to change this and show that we are onto this. You could go even ahead, like you apply a background, like any active state you want. For instance, into this case, you can see they give it a background, and so long as you can differentiate clearly how the active state looks like, you can always change. you can see these others. I think that was a nice one. So in this, we use this background color on this to indicate that we are onto this. Okay, great. So this is what we have so far. I'm just going to iterate some styles to really cater for it to look nice. First of all, we can just go and see the text. So these titles, they are having text Excel. They just stick to text SM and we see how it behaves. Okay, I think it is at least maybe. And if you just look at this, we have these numbers being squeezed, and this kind of scenario is due to what we call shrink. So just go to this and give it a flex link. Okay, wherever you have flex now and there is not enough space, they always tend to fix. Like you can see in the first case it is okay, and in these other cases where you have more text, it has been squeezed. So you can just go ahead and say, for instance here, and you say flex shrink, and you say 0. So this, it will be stopped from shrinking and it will make sure it has this kind of thing. Okay, yeah, and this is a common scenario with icons and so many other things. So we have each step here. I guess I need to get like a really better way of like displaying it. I don't think like this is enough space. I think this kind of model is really not good. Like with this much stuff, either I give a lot of padding. Can I reduce like the padding and maybe the width? Okay, because it doesn't really look so nice to me. You can just like simply actually turn the width to 8. Just go to 8. And then what else I can do is I also can reduce on to the padding. So if you just go to the steps, is right now having padding of 10. We could just go ahead and just apply padding, for instance padding Y of 10, but then PX we can just try 6. Okay, and see. Okay, so somehow they just like looking more understandable, and then this thing just being in between doesn't make sense also. So I'm just going to say we have here onto these step. So in the step, more especially here where we have the iron items center. Okay, I might just like prefer to remove this center. I guess it is that one. Let me see. Yeah, I think this is much better. Yep, so we have our steps. I think this is a much better design. Yeah, I like this one. So we have all these steps. I guess you have understood that this, you can create a different component to handle the sidebar so that your code remains really nice. You have all the steps being rendered onto the UI, and the only thing is now to go ahead and have a form, at least one form. Okay, we can have a form. Okay, so now we are done with the steps. We're just going to go back to see how do you move from one step to the other. Now the next thing yes we'll work on is the form. So you can just go ahead and just have, like, for instance, this this step form here. If you just go back to the page, we have worked on to that. Now we go to this step form. And now what is step form? If you go to the step form, we have to actually render a form. So the most important thing here is we want to render a form based on the step. Okay, we have to render a form based on the step. So that means like we can just also assume that our current step, the way we just use it here, like in this, like the current step, let me just say 1. I'm also going to just assume this. I could just say assume the current step. What is the step form? I want to go to the step form. Assume we have the current step as equal to 1. So we would want to render a form here. Okay, we would want to render a form corresponding to step 1. Okay, that's what I'm just trying to say by step form here. We would want to render a step based on the current step that we are on. Okay, so that means that we might just need to write a function called, for instance, we could just get a function called render form by current step. Okay, we could just have this, something like this, render form by a step, and then we pass in the step we are on. Okay, we pass in the step we are on, and this one is going to go ahead and check if, for instance, the step is equal to, for instance, if the step is equal to 1, and then here we go ahead and render the form corresponding to step 1. So we just go ahead and return, maybe, for instance, return the personal info form. So just say return p tag, which says personal info form. Okay, for instance, this is the first one. If you just see here, we have personal info form, and this is the first one. So in this case here, if you have if the step is equal to 1, render this, and we just go and say else if, okay, else if step is equal to, you could have used a switch statement. I find if statements more understandable, but here you could use a switch statement, and you could just find here they say return, and then here you could just return the second form, maybe the education background form. Okay, you could just go ahead and here you put another form, and you keep just like doing this until we have all this. Then after this, we can just say in the return here, okay, I could just go ahead and I say return render by step, and we pass in the step we are on. Like right now, we just pass in the current step, just like this. So the current step, it will check the current step, and it will know which actually of these forms to return. So if I do that, you can see like here just going to return like personal info form, and it is returning it because the current step is currently 1. Okay, so using this architecture, we're just going to go ahead and create different forms. Okay, we're just going to have this, let me just show you now the logic. So we just have something like this, exactly. Okay, so I would have the current step right now. Said we're going to assume this to be 1, and this is we're going to see where we are going to use Redux for that step. And I'm just going to go ahead and do render form by step, and we have a step, and then here we can render different forms depending on which scenario we are on. Okay, so for instance, how many forms do we need right now? We just need, for instance, it's going to bring an error, of course, but we need the forms corresponding to all those. Let me just first remove them. I'm just going to return for these ones, just return. let me first create the first one, personal info form. Okay, you could just go ahead, like in the components or in the mat step form, you could also put all the forms, step forms. I could just create here a new folder and I say step forms, so that they are all together, and this one helps you in, like, if you want to reuse. So in the first one, I'm just going to say personal info form dot jsx and just say rfc. Okay, and just say here h2 personal info form, just like that. And then let's go ahead and import this in the step form. So in the step form, I'm just going to go ahead and import this, and you can first remove all these ones we have in here, and you can just remove all these here, and let me just get this. Okay, so I have this from this. Okay, so right now the error should go so that we can see other ones we have. Okay, so you can see here personal info form. So we have education BG form. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly do this. I'll be copying this other one. So we have the step forms. Okay, just simply copy this and paste. So now we have the copy F2 to education background form. Okay, and use the exact name, Ctrl C, and let's put it here, and also let's put it here. And you can just go to the step form and just say if the step is equal to, we want to put this education background form, just like that. And then moving on, we have programming experience form. Okay, so just have this and just like do the same thing, simply copy and paste. So copy and let's paste it here. Okay, rename F2 and then just go ahead and say this is programming experience. Okay, programming experience form. Okay, and just go ahead and copy this F2, copy, and let's rename this, and let's go ahead and do ls if here. You can just go ahead and copy this and put it here, just like that for many times, and just say else if step is equal to 3. Okay, if the step is equal to 3, we just need to return the programming experience, okay, and we have preferred language, so preferred programming language. So go ahead and let me duplicate still, copy and paste F2, and this one is going to be preferred language. maybe just create preferred language. Okay, form. Okay, just copy this, bring it here and in here. Okay, so we have that, and we can just also go ahead and bring it in the step form. So if the step is 4, so you see how this, where it is heading. You could pause the video and then you also work on your form. If you are following exactly the same, that's good. Okay, preferred language form. The word preferred is single F. Like preferred is single F. You just rename this. Always find issues with spellings. Okay. Okay, so now let's just go back to the step form. Let's get this one, and let's remove the old one, this one. Okay, so you could just go ahead and finish all this one. The remaining is only preferred technical skills form. Just go ahead, copy this, and let me paste. F2, I'm just going to have this technical skills form, technical skills form. Let me just also copy this, just like that. Okay, and then finally we have submit and confirmation. So I'm just going to call this on confirmation, form confirmation. Just go ahead and do the same thing. Copy this and paste. Just F2, submit and confirmation. I say form confirmation. Okay, I just leave it like that, form confirmation. They just like F2, copy this, just call it form confirmation, and then here let's just go ahead and do that. That is the last step. So we have step 5, which was this. Step 5 is the technical skills. Okay, so this technical skills on the step 5. And then lastly, so you can just like say not else if, but I think at this point we could just like try else. Okay, and this will be the last one, whereby say else. And we just might just actually need even just also to put I think that is the else part, because all the parts are done. Now we can say else return the confirmation. We can just see here, this is like form confirmation. Okay, so we have all these ones. Okay, if you have all these ones, we can just test by changing here the current step. Change the current step, for instance, to maybe any like 4. And by the way, we could just also specify here, let's just specify to be specific on this step. Okay, we could just go ahead and say else if. Okay, else if else if the step is equal to 6, step is equal to 6, then let's just say return this, so that we are very specific on what we are returning exactly. So you just go and change, like for instance 6, we put here we have 4. On 4, you see we have preferred language, which is this. And then if we say for instance 6, okay, you can see that we have the form confirmation. Okay, so this is great. This is great. So now we have now to design the forms. We'll just design like a few of them quickly, and I show you. For instance, if I wanted to design, for instance, the personal info form, I'm just going to show you the personal info form. So this is a point whereby we actually start using, I'm just going to first we're going to use React Hook forms with Redux. So let me go to the personal info form, and I'm just going to close all. Go to the personal info form, and let me just update this a little bit, and I will explain. First of all, I just want to remove our unnecessary things we are using, the ones we haven't looked at, like everything to do with Redux. I will just remove them because I want to explain. Let me remove even all the form inputs. Okay, let me remove all the form inputs. I will just explain them. Even all these. Okay, let's just leave maybe the loading. So the first thing you're just going to do is install React Hook forms. Okay, the first thing to do is install React Hook forms. So just do that. So on the terminal, open a new terminal here, and let's install React Hook forms. So I'm just going to say npm install React Hook form. Is it like React Hook form or React Hook forms? Let's first see import from React Hook what. I've removed all the imports, guys. Let me see this. It is React Hook form. So React Hook form, and we can also just go and also install maybe the toast, React hot toast. Okay, those two. So the React Hook form is going to help us for validation. In the future, when we start using TypeScript, we'll be using it with Zod to simplify validation. Okay, so now the thing is, before I take you through how I used this, if you look at the design, you see that we have the heading and maybe some tagline. We have a heading and the tagline for each form. Okay, you can see here I have the form, okay, which is just going to explain on this on submit, but it is having this header here, which is having the head title, the form title, and the tagline, as simple as that. And then here inside we have a grid containing the form inputs, and then down here you have the nav buttons. So the nav buttons are these ones. If you just go back to this, so the navigation buttons are this: next step, previous step. If you go to the next step, you see that Let me do fake field. If you go to the next step, we have to put a valid email address. Okay, and this one is a phone number. This phone number. Okay, so I have this information. If I go to the next step, you see that I have this back button. Okay, I have this go back button. So these are the navigation buttons, and now we have the form inputs. Okay, we have the form inputs. If I just go back, we have these form inputs, and if you check on these form inputs, okay, basically you can just go ahead and get your form inputs from Flowby. It doesn't matter. Okay, don't mind about mine. You can just go here and type in like form something like form inputs. So tailwind forms, you just go here and just get like some form inputs. Okay, they have here the forms. Just go ahead and copy these inputs and you can use these ones. Okay, you can always use these inputs, and they're the ones actually I use it. One more thing you have to install is actually tailwind forms. So if you are considering using these ones, you have to include tailwind forms. But before I add them, I want to show you how one form looks like. So I'm just going to go ahead and import these inputs. Just going to, of course, we will just edit these text input. We already have all these ones are text input, and then also just import the navigation buttons. Do I have the nav buttons? Not yet. In the form inputs, okay, I'm just going to go and get the nav buttons here. So the nav buttons, I'm just going to scroll down. You have somewhere the nav buttons, they're here. Okay, so I'm just going to create a component, I don't know, inside the inputs, these inputs. Let me just create nav buttons dot jsx rfc, and just paste these ones. Okay, so basically I'm also just going to remove anything to do with Redux, and for this step let me put 1. Okay, anything to do with Redux, I'm just going to remove it. I'll just explain how we put everything from scratch. Okay, great. Okay, so now this is going to be showing the previous and the next buttons. Let me just go and import this, the nav buttons, basically. Okay, and this is just to show you that you have to have the inputs. Just have the normal inputs. I'm just going to show you. Have your form, have the inputs, and one more important thing is to make sure you have these inside a form. So you can see I have a form. Okay, I have this as a form. That's what I was going thinking about this approach. It needs to be a specific form, like it is an individual form, just like this. Okay, and then inside that form we are just passing in the on submit, handle submit. Okay, and then if you have not watched any video about React hook forms, I have a video on React hook forms. You can just check about it. Okay, you need to have this on submit, and then we are saying handle submit, and then we have this process data function, this one. Okay, this one is going to help us do anything we want with this data. Okay, So the first thing is to make sure that, for all your inputs, if I just come here on the inputs, if you use it an input like this text input, I know you have something like a label, okay, and then you have the label name, you have the input. The most important thing is to make sure you register here, okay. In this case, I took the normal text inputs, okay. I have this normal text inputs, and then I linked them. I just like made them reusable, where I made everything just like props, just like this, and then I'm just reusing them here, like where we have the label, where I have the input, okay, where I have the input, and I think I will also just like create and link these inputs so that you can actually have a look at them, okay. And if you want me to make a separate video explaining how I made these inputs, there are actually so many inputs as you can see them here. If you want me to make a separate video explaining this, how I created the reusable form elements, by the way, if you go on my YouTube, let's just go to the YouTube. If I just go to my YouTube, you could also find a video where I created all those ones. I think there is a video, but it was under some series. So if I just go to, and it just says JB Web Dev, okay. So just go ahead, and here on my channel you can search for reusable form something. I just put here, let me first pause this. You could put something like reusable, maybe reusable. I have a lot of videos about reusable. Okay, so I have a lot of reusable, I don't know, product form, reusable add tag, reusable editor component, reusable image upload component. We have toggle component, then we have these reusable components, dynamic forms, and with reusable. So you could check one of those videos and you see how I made reusable. But if you want me to make, I think I should just make one video where you create reusable form inputs, okay. Yeah, if you just want that to see that video, please comment in the description so that we can make that video. So moving on is, make sure you have the register, and then of course the error. That's the only thing you just need. Otherwise, just come here, you have your all form inputs. We are going to pass in, of course, the data, and these the nav buttons. Nav buttons I've shown you, it is just the previous and the next button. If you just go in the nav, I have this previous. I'm just going to talk about this condition rendering, but we have the previous and the next button, so there are two buttons, this and this one, okay. Just simply remove this handle previous, and I'm just going to sort of remove any only clicks just in case we have it, like this one. We just write everything from scratch right now, just need only the UI. And let me just see if this comes back. Let me see, module not found, Roasted React. Okay, so just go and install Roasted. So install the Roasted for the icons, npm install Roasted. Is that the spelling? Roasted React. Yeah, Roasted React, just like this. So install the icons, the Roasted React icons. So just go ahead and install. Okay, so we have installed the Roasted React. Yeah, okay, so it is done. So let me minimize this. So if I just go back, I don't have any errors. Okay, so just go ahead and try to show this. I'm just going to go back to the forms tab, and let me make this one so that you can just see the personal info form. It seems you have the error. Let's see, use form is not defined. Let's go to here. Of course, make sure first of all you have this use form hook from React hook form. Okay, and make this one use client. Okay, so if you just go back now, the error must go because now we have this. Okay, so I want you to look at the form inputs, how they look like, and this is because we don't have Tailwind forms. So quickly install Tailwind forms. And what do Tailwind forms do? Tailwind forms, they add some default styling. So I'm just going to say add Tailwind forms. Okay, just add this, add Tailwind forms, and you could just go here. Just on this GitHub. Okay, so you can just read more about onto this page. A plugin that provides basic reset for form styles that makes form elements easy to override with utilities. Okay, so this one just adds basic styles. I'm just going to copy this. So just go ahead and copy that, and I'm just going to install these Tailwind forms. Okay, and then after installing it, they just then add the plugin in your Tailwind config file. So just simply copy this require file, require, and they also give you the basic usage. Okay, they give you the basic usage. You can just go and see how you can use this. It has already finished installing, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull up. I'm just going to go ahead and get this package.json. No, sorry, Tailwind config. So down here, I'm just going to add this plugin require Tailwind forms, and with only that, if you just go back to our form, just in a second is going to overwrite the design, the styles, and boom, you have the nice form here. So let me just go ahead and put in like the information that corresponds to this personal info. If you check onto what we have into that, the fields we have into, I'm just going to scroll down to where I have that step. We have the full name, email address, phone number, date of birth. So here we have full name, email address, phone number. Okay, and then we have date of birth. So just go ahead and add some more. So if you just go here, personal info, and this one, just going to give it as date of birth, and this one just going to say DOB, and then you could just go ahead and just give it a type of date. Just type date. Okay, and then next is gender, and this is the one for the option. I think I can use select here. Yeah, I'm just going to use the select input instead of the radio, but in the future you can just get for the radio. Okay, if you just go here and you search for radio, okay, like the radio input is also not easy to work with, but I'm just going to make a reusable component for this radio, whereby you have this kind of stuff, and then this is why you have this radio group, horizontal. I think like this one is a really nice one. Yeah. And how would you make this one really reusable? Okay, I just have to see how to make this reusable. Okay, I'm just going to look for a way how to make this reusable, but for now I'm just going to use the select input. So I'm just going to say select the select input. So I have the select input just like that, and the select input takes in, let's say you have these. Okay, let me just even scroll down. Okay, it takes in all this. It takes in a label, a name, register, class name, options, multiple. Okay, so I think by default it has some defaults, like for instance options is empty and multiple false. So I'm just going to go to this, and we have to pass in all these things. So just copy in this upper one. First of all, errors are not necessary. Label, name, register, class name, just those ones. And for the options, so just remove also multiple. Okay, and then for options, just see this. Now it should be okay. Is this like a div? Just close here. Oh, a minute. So it should have this closing, I guess, like closing something like this. Okay, and let me pass in an empty array here right now, just like that. Yep, so now we have this, and here the label is going to be select your agenda. Okay, and remove the type. The name is gender. Register, and the errors, there is no errors. Okay, so I think this is it. And if you check in the options, if you check in the select and you just go to the options, you set the option, we need option.id and option.title. So I'm just going to go here and create the genders. Okay, I can say const gender. Okay, const gender is equal to an array, and for this case is really tricky. Okay, because we're using this like to select, like it takes in an ID. If you look on the value, just a second, value is option ID. Okay, so I'm just going to make the ID to be that. Okay, it's okay. So just going to have here on this gender, so just have the ID, the identifier for male, just going to call it male. and then the title, of course just going to call it mail, just like that. So let's duplicate this. So just take it to have like identifier, the ID female, female, and then this one female. Okay, so this one should now work. So pass this gender, and we can pass it in the select options here. Just pass it here, the gender. Sorry, pass the gender here. Now if we go back, we should have the gender, like you can see now, male and female. Okay, and the styles are not finishing, but we could make it like the date is okay, the gender, okay. Is there anything else? Gender, then we have address. Just going to put just like maybe we just call it address, and then a country maybe. Okay, so just going to have two of them now. Text input, the first one is going to be your location address. Okay, your location address. Okay, date type is text, so remove this. The name is going to be address, maybe just go to location, and then the same thing for the country. So okay, your country of residence. Okay, and here is country. Okay, so you have all this. If we check now, we have a full form complete. Okay, we have this step, and you can see already it is a significant amount of data. You could even think like dividing this into also another step, but let's just keep it simple. Depending on the information you have, you can just like keep it, like divide it into even more. So the good thing with this is that if you try to go to the next step, you can see that you are required actually to fill in all this information. Like this is the good thing of using React Hook Forms. And how is it able to do that? Now on the nav buttons, you can see they are inside the form, and this is important, guys. My nav buttons, the nav buttons, they are inside a form. Okay, so inside the form we have down the nav buttons, and let's look at these nav buttons exactly. So if you can see, we have the previous button and the next button. The previous button and the next buttons are really different. If you check the types, this one has type submit, the next button, and then the previous button has type button. This is very important to make sure that the only button that submits the data is the next button. Okay, so in a form, if you have two buttons, one has type submit, another one has type button, the one with type button will not do anything. The one with type submit is the one which will be actually having something. Okay, so the first thing we want is when we click on the next button, we want to submit the data, sort of like correct the data. So this is going to happen on the form here. When someone clicks the next button, it is going to run the process function. It's going to have handle submit, and then eventually run this process data function while we can correct the data. The first thing, of course, we want to make sure that all the data is validated. So all data is valid. Okay, all data is valid. Then after validating the data, and this one is done of course by React hook form, the way we are doing it. So after the data is valid, we collect all the data. So we collect all the data, and after that we just want to go ahead and either save the data to the database. So you could just say save or update data in state. In fact, update data in the global state, in the global state, and then go ahead and you could just save this data in the database. Save the data also in the database. Okay, so you could just have like these kind of things here, these steps here, and of course also update the step. So update or proceed to the next update the current step, because we would have gone to the next step. Update the current step. Okay, so these are the steps we are going to use. The first one, data is validated using React hook form by the fact that we are using the errors, and it is very easy to do that. The second thing is collect the data. So if you fill in the data, and I say console.log data, after you have this data, if I just go in the console here and try to fill in all the data, I don't know if I would like it to be like this. In the you could just like style it the way you want. In the on the small font, maybe we put them just in flex, not just like in this. They remain the way they were. I think it's much better than looking like this. Let me just work on that in a second. On to the steps. If you just go to the steps, and on the steps we have the flex raw, justify, but on I think we just leave it as flex core. Just say flex core. Right away justify, we remove this md so that it just like remains that like that. Even this justify, they just remain the way they were supposed to be, and it is a much better. Oh, now justify this between thing. Where is the between? Center core span flex core justify. Just need to be just like justify start. I don't know. Items, I think is on the items. Is it on the items? Oh, okay. And then I could just have to work on these other ones, but that is like on the small screen. Really, I don't know how we are supposed to handle that. You can just go and let me just leave it the way it was. Just going to leave it the way it was. Yeah, just like that. You can just go and arrange it the way you want. I'm just going to leave it like that. So right now, if I just go ahead and I do fake fill, and I click on next, you can see I receive all the data. Okay, so I receive all the data for this step. So what I do with this data, it's all about me. Okay, what you do with all this data is all about you. So what you're just going to do is, this is a time whereby you're going to actually include Redux. Okay, this is a step whereby we are going to include Redux. I have a full video about Redux and how we used it. So you're just going to again at this time use Redux. And what is the purpose of Redux really? We have to understand very well where do we want Redux and why would we want Redux. Okay, so in the first instance is one, we are changing. Let's start with the steps. The first thing that is very important to us is to know the current state. Okay, in these steps in the sidebar we need to know the current state. If you check most of the components, we are assuming the current state to be 1. If you go anywhere, you're going to see that we assume the current state. In the nav buttons here, we are assuming the current state is 1. We need to have a way of knowing the current state globally. Like in all components, we should be told what is the current state right now, so that we make decisions based on that. We are displaying this state form based on the current state. If you check in the state form, it is logically here, it is showing depending on the state. And we are assuming here the current state to be 1. So we need a way of having the global way of having the current state. That is 1. 2, we need also a way, of course, of moving from one state to another. Okay, when we click on the next, that's when we are going to do that. Okay, is when you are going to do that. That is one thing we need with the Redux. The second thing is having a way of having this data also in the global state. The personal info data we need at the global state, so that at the end of the day we can keep the data for this person in the state. When someone goes to the next step and they go back to the previous state, the data is still in state. Okay, and it is in sync. That is very important. Okay, so we need to have that in mind, that the global the data, we need it in the global state, and afterwards on the last step we also need that data so that we combine it. Okay, so we need for data for each individual state, and then after finishing step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, 5, 6, we need all the data for all these steps to be combined together, so that we save it at once. Okay, we could just like say, if we are saving it at saving it in every step, you might not need to save it globally at once. But remember, people keep on exchanging data. We're just going to look at that or discuss about that. But you can just have all the data for all these, and then later on we combine it, and then we send it and save it. Okay, so that is the two things we need with the Redux. So just go ahead and implement Redux. So to implement Redux is first installing it. So we need 3 things. So just npm install. So you think you have to install Redux, React Redux. So React Redux, and we need to install, I think it is called Redux toolkit. I have to confirm that. I think it's Redux.js. Redux.js, then toolkit. Let me just first confirm that. Installing Redux toolkit. Anyways, I think I have also an entire blog. Okay, we have an entire blog for Redux. Let me just go there for a second. Okay, we have an entire blog for Redux. If in the video, I think I would also include it. This, so that you can find it. Okay, the installation Redux toolkit. Okay, just a second. This is taking more. Okay, so you can see install at Redux.js. Yeah, so that is it. You install at Redux.js toolkit, and then with React Redux. So it is npm install Redux, React Redux, and at Redux.js. I think that is the one. Just enter. So you need to install those three packages: Redux, the original Redux, React Redux, and then at Redux Toolkit, we are going to be using at Redux Toolkit. Okay. So the steps are: you create the store. Okay. You simply create. So I'm just going to first create here. I'm just going to go ahead and create a folder for Redux. So on this, I'm just going to create a new folder and call it Redux. Okay, so inside the Redux, you need three things. The first one is the store. So just create the store.js. The second thing you need is the provider. Okay, so you need to have here, just going to say providers for now. Provider.jsx. And then finally you need the slices. So just create here the slices API. They use the slices API. So just have these three things: the store, the provider, and the slices. So in the store is why we actually create the whole entire store, and the store is actually having the slices and it is having them as reducers. Okay, I explained all these terms: the slices, the reducers, and all kind of stuff in the Redux video. If you want to watch the Redux, first go and watch the Redux video and then you come to this video for sure. Okay, you need to a step-by-step explanation for Redux. I have that video. If you just come here and you search for Redux, I have a step-by-step video I made like 1 week ago. Okay, so just go ahead and search for this video. I think you will see it here. So I have this Redux toolkit with Next.js 14. We did a shopping cart project. It is really nice. Just go and have a look. So we have these three things, and the store, okay, for the Redux, we have all the notes for Redux here. All the things I explained in that video, I used this very one, and you can see the installation. I have it there. And the first thing, you can create the store using the configure store. Okay, so we in the store, you can just say, you could just say const store, and you could just use the configure store. I think it's called configure store, and then you pass in an object, and the only thing is you bring in others as reducers. So just have here reducers, and this is why you specify all your slices. Okay, so slices are just like all small pieces of state you want to. So just imagine it, you have a big state called store. So the store is the big state. So you have store. So this is the entire store, and then you divide it into small slices. So this is the whole state. The whole state is this one, the store. Okay, so you can have the entire state in the store. Let's say products, cart, the onboarding form. You can have a lot of things in the store, and then you divide them into different names. For instance, products alone, cart alone, onboarding form alone, and those ones are called slices. Okay, so you just go ahead and create and export, by the way, the store. And so just have this export and create. I'm just going to copy this for simplicity and just replace it here. So we create the store using the configure store, while we have the reducer. Now we have to pass in the reducer here. Now let's call it onboarding. So I'm just going to go in the slices and create a new slice, call it onboarding students. Onboarding, okay, students, okay, slice, just like that. Okay, I'm just going to create this slice .js, just like that. So the first thing in this is creating the slice, and I think I also have this in the other blog. Let me duplicate this. So the only thing in the slice is to note you have to create the slice and export it. So we need to create a slice, okay, and it is as simple as saying also const, for instance, onboarding. So you can just call it any name, onboarding students slice. Onboarding students slice is equal to, also there is this create slice, okay, create slice, I guess. Yeah, so there is another function called create slice. This is supposed to be onboarding. Okay, so this one, okay, so this one also takes in three things. Takes in the name, okay, it takes in the name. So you could just say the name is onboarding, okay, and then down here it takes in the initial state, and then it also takes in the reducers. So it takes in all these three things. If you just create a slice, it has these three things. It has the initial state, the reducers, and the name you are giving to this slice. So this is how you do it. I just want to go back to the previous document, the one we are using. So we can first define the initial state. So here you can just say const initial state. What do we want to keep in the state? That is the most important thing. What do we want to keep in the state? The first thing, of course, is the current state. Okay, we want to keep to get the current state, and for each step, of course, for each state you give, it will have a corresponding reducer. You are going to see that. For instance, we want to keep track of the current state. What is the current state? So we want to keep track of the current state, and by default we can just say let it have a 1. Okay, so I'm giving it a value of 1, like the first step is going to be step number 1. So the current step, we start from 1. Then another thing is, now we need data to keep track of all this data, the personal information, all these ones. We want to keep track of this information. So alternatively, you could just have, for instance, something called like form data, okay, form data, and then you could have this this as this whole block of data, okay. All this data you could add it into this one, okay. Alternatively, I think, I don't know if this is the better alternative. Instead of keeping it and we have only one reducer for the form data, okay, so you could just like have only 2. I think I just see, for simplicity, let me just make it 2, only just like this. You have the current state and then you have the form data, okay. So this form data at this point, we are referring to, or the data for all these the personal information, the education background, programming experience, all these form is what you're referring as form data. So by default, you could make it empty, or you could go ahead and pass in all the keys. Okay, you could go ahead and pass in all the keys that you have. Okay, alternatively, you could also have each for each of this you have educational background alone and all that one alone. I think that is a longer method that I use it in the other. If I'm to show you, let me first show you my reducer here, the one I used previously. I think that is a longer process, is a necessary thing. So if you check on my slice, okay, let me show you my slice. So in my slice, I had this the initial state. In my initial state, you see I had the current step, and then I have personal info, shipping info, and then combined data. I think there is no need of these other steps. You could right away have combined data, what I'm trying to call it form data, all of it. And so that here in the reducers, you have only two reducers. One, they want to update the current state. Okay, so you have one which updates the current state, and then the one which updates this whole information. Okay, so in the reducers would have the set current state. So here I would have set, we need something which is going to update current state. You could just call it just like that, update current state, or you could just use set current state. So this is what we call a reducer, and this one is going to take in, it takes in a state and action, which is carrying the data. Okay, let me just copy one here, and the reducer is simply a function. Always remember that. So if I just create this set current state, it is taking in the state and this. So we just want to get the current state dot current state, which is this one, and then we say it is action dot payload, and this is action dot payload is the information that comes from whatever we are setting. We're just going to see what the payload in action means, but it's simply the actual data, this payload. Then another one we would have is this update. I would have only update this one, or update state this. I would have this update. They just say update form data, update form data. And how would we update the form data? We would have to actually get, okay, we have to go and get state dot form data, state dot form data. Did I go to form data? Yeah. So I would just have to go to this and get the previous, because we need to spread the previous state dot form data. We have to first get this, the previous one that was existing, we spread it, and then later on we can add the payload, action dot payload. So it would be as simple as this. Just this one means that spread the existing data. Let's say we are on step number 2, maintain all the data in the step number 1, and simply add in the step the data in the step number 2. This is what it means. Okay, this is great. So this is the two things we have. We have the set current step, and then we have the update form data. Okay, so now if I'm just to do, you have to export two things from here. You have to export these reducers. Okay, export these reducers actually from the action, and then also export this from this slice. You can export this reducer. So this one would be just like writing these 2 lines. Okay, just put these 2 lines down here. One, export these ones. We have set and update form data. So we have only 2 reducers right now. Update form data and set current data. So I'm just going to remove all these ones. So you have set. So you have to export this from the name of the slice, and this one is called now this onboarding students slice. So just use it here and then here. So you export this from the actions, and then you export also the reducer. So after doing that, just bring this. Okay, just come back to the store, and now we can just come here and you give it a name here. Let's just say onboarding. I can call this onboarding. Okay, any name you want, by the way, here, and this is the one you're going to use when you are getting it from the store. So just say onboarding, and then you import this slice. Okay, import this slice. So as simple as that, you have this into the store. So we have connected our slice. All this information you have in the slice, we have brought it into the store. So after connecting it onto the store, we can go ahead and now connect the store to the global app. This store now, we need to connect it to the global app. Now we need to go ahead and work onto this provider. Okay, and really the provider is, let me just say RFC is export default providers, and the most important thing is to have the children to wrap around, and then here just say have the provider from Redux, and then here just going to wrap around the children just like that. It has not imported provider Redux, as simple as that. And I think we can pass in the store. Okay, we can pass in the store just like that, and that's why we import the store. So just go ahead and get the store. So we create a provider, and this one makes our store to be globally accessed in the entire app. So these providers, then we go ahead and bring it in the layout. So go in the layout, app layout, and then we can just wrap this whole entire thing here in the providers. So just go here and just say providers, just like this, from the Redux, and inside here, as simple as that. Okay, so this is the putting now this to work. Okay, after you have created your provider, link it to the entire app. So this whole entire app has access to the store. So how do we use the store? So for instance, where we are getting, I can just go in the show you. For instance, let me go to let me first go to this form. I need to go to one of these forms. Let me just go to components, and in the forms, let me go to this form. For instance, this personal info form. This is the first form, and I can go ahead on top here and I access like the current state. You say const current state. Okay, you say is equal to use selector. So we use this hook from Redux called use selector, and this is how we get the data. So use selector, and this use selector must come from Redux. You can see it here. And this one, first of all, gives us access to the store, okay, or to the state. So from this, we can just say store dot onboarding, okay, onboarding, and this one directly gives you now access. So if you just say store dot onboarding, this one is selecting the whole entire state. So this one only gives you access to this is the name we used here, onboarding. This name here gives you access to this entire onboarding student slice, and in that slice it gives you specifically to the state. So you have access to now to this state, this one. This of course by default you have called it initial state. So you have access to this now object. So from this object we can get the current state. So you can just come and say dot current state. Okay, I can access this current state, and let's console.log the current state. Okay, and let's just go back to our form. We have an error. This function is not supported in the server component. And why is that? We have use client. Okay, so make sure your provider also is in use client. So providers, just make sure this is in use client. Okay, as simple as that. I think that's what the problem was. Let's just wait and see. Yep. So if I just go back to my form, and you see we have access to one. Okay, and if I want to get also, for instance, let me duplicate this, and I want to get the form data. Okay, if I want just to get access to global form data, so form data is equal to use selector store dot onboarding dot form data. Form. So I have access also to the global form data. So just go here and you see form data. Okay, and if I just do that, you see I have here an empty object. Okay, I have an empty object, and this is very important because we can now pass in this as is, as in the initial state. Okay, because we're just going to be having like the global data. We can just use this to pass it in this here in the use form. Okay, we can just say that by default we can just pass in an object, and we say default values, and we can form an object, and we simply spread the form data just like this. This one is going to help us actually keep the data in sync, like we cannot lose the data. Okay, so before putting this, let's go back to this normal one, and we'll set it in action. So the first thing is, after we have all the data, we collect the data, we update data in the global scope. This is now we use we dispatch this this action. So in the slice, if you go back in the slice, we created this update form data. This is a function, and we are even importing it, exporting it here. So you're going to use it to update the form data globally. So I mean, in this function, we'll have to first create a dispatch. So just come here and say const dispatch. So this one is equal to use dispatch, also a hook that comes from Redux. And this dispatch, we can just come here and we say you can dispatch now an action, or you can call a reducer from here. let's say dispatch. So you can call dispatch, and then I pass in this update form data, and make sure you import it. You will have to make sure you import it here. Where is it? And it is here. Make sure you import that. And now we pass it in, and then we give it the payload. Okay, because it takes in state and payload. So here we simply pass in the data, just like this. So now if I go ahead and let me show you, let me remove this console. Okay, and on top here we are actually printing the form data. Okay, so let's see, go and see, it is an empty. Let me just go and fill in some dummy data. Clear everything, fill. So now we have some data. Click next. Now look at this. Now this one is coming from 13. If you check it, it is the global data. This line 13 is actually getting it from the store. So here we are updating our data globally in the state. Okay, so you can see now it is having all this one. So if we go to the next step, of which we are going to also to determine from here. So how do we go to the next step? After we have updated the data in the global state, we can go ahead and save this. Now here you could make an API request. Okay, here you could just make an API request to save the data. I'm not going to do that. You know how to do API requests. Save the data to the database, but since we are not going to do that step, I'm just showing that you can now save the data at that point or update the data at that point. But now at this point, let me just go ahead and update the current step. Okay, so now I'm just also going to dispatch another action. So dispatch, I'm just going to dispatch now set current. Okay, set current step, okay, to the current step plus 1. Okay, so we can access the current step. Already I'm getting it on top here, current step from the store. So it has to get the current step and simply add 1. Okay, so you just go and see that if I now refresh, and let me go ahead and fill in the data. Which error we having here? Class name, and that is which component? Personal component. We have somewhere we don't have class. The H5. Okay, so just like look at that. Maybe in the future. Here you have class. Change this to class name. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get the data. So use the fake feeder here and click next. Okay, now we have updated the data. I wish you could also, let's go ahead and also console.log the current state. So we have the form data. I'm just going to go ahead and say the current state. Okay, just like this. And let me refresh. Okay, and fill in all the data. Click next. So now you see we have this, and the step goes to step number 2. Okay, so we are now able to update the globally also the current state. We are moving to the step number 2. So the only thing we just need is first of all, I want to get this form data and then use it as the default. But before that, let me just first leave it. Let's first go to the steps. So we have to update first of all the form. This form has to update and go to the next form. And then these steps here, we have to proceed to now step number 2. Now to do that, we have to update in 2 places. or even 3 places. The first one, we have to go to the form step. Okay, step form, and we have to get the current step. Instead of saying 1, we are going to get this from the global state, and we're just going to say is equal to use select, okay, from Redux. This gives us access to the store, and from the store we can actually access store.onboarding. Then this one gives us access to the slice state, and then from the slice state we can just get the current state, and then now we use this kind of step to decide what's shown on the screen. If you do that, you will see that if it refreshes, we shall start again. But you see now it has shown education background form because the step is on 2. Now we have to update also on the sidebar. Okay, we have to update on the sidebar. Let me just use this here. This is more appropriate. So on the sidebar, let's go to this step itself. So on the step here, instead of getting it from here, let's also use select from Redux, get access to the store. Then from the store, let's get the slice. So just get onboarding. So this is the slice state, and from this slice state I can get the current state, just like this. And this should now go ahead and update this. You can see automatically it goes to step 2. Okay, now one more thing is the buttons. Okay, we don't have the buttons yet in this form, but we have to go and show these the nav buttons. Let's go to the nav buttons. So just go to the form inputs, and we have the nav buttons. First of all, we only first get the global current state, of course, saying use selector. So you still use selector here, and then have access to the store, and then from the store, okay, so this is the store global state. From that from the store state, I want to get for the onboarding slice state, and then from it I want to get the current state. So now from this step we can decide a number of things. For instance, if the step is only 1, we don't want to show the previous button. Okay, to avoid a person clicking it and going beyond 1, so we only show it if the step is greater than 1. That is one thing. 2, we could also go ahead and change the text here. For the next, if the step is equal to 6 here, we want to change this one from next to submit. Okay, so I want to go ahead and say this. I'm just going to say if the current step is equal to 6, if the current step is equal to 6, which is the last step, then if this is true, I want to put the text saying submit, else just show next, just like that. Okay, you could just even just say confirm and submit, confirm and submit, and then on others it is only going to be showing the next. Okay, so for instance, now let's go and just work on these other forms. And these other forms, I'm just going to be copying this from this personal info form. Just simply copy everything in this form and just go to the second form, which is I think educational background. Okay, so just replace everything and simply copy this name and of the component, just replace it here. Okay, now we only just need to change the form inputs. Okay, you can see on step 2 we have to change the inputs, and the inputs in this one, let's just go up. Educational background has highest level of education, name of the last institution attended. So let me just first have these ones. We don't have select, right? Yeah, so just go here and remove this, just like that. And let me just go here, change these inputs. The first one is highest level of education. Okay, here enter highest level of education, and I will give you access to this. I will give you access to this repo. Okay, we could just say level of education, level of education. Okay, level of education. Yeah, and then the second one is last institution attended, name of the last institution attended, name of the last institution attended. So here I'm just going to say attended. Okay, and then I'm just going to pass in previous, maybe school or institution. This spelling is always brings me like crazy. The type is text, so just remove this. And then the majority of study, graduation, year. This is too much information. I'm just going to put a graduation year, for instance. You get the point. Graduation year. Okay, and this is a number. Yeah, and others I can just like remove. Really, there is no need of this all much info right now. I'm just showing you how to handle this. Okay, so now I'm just going to say this, and now if you just go back here, step number 2, I'm just going to first of all change this to education background. Education background. Yep, as simple as that. So now you get the idea. You can see we are going back step 1 and the empty. So now I just want to go back and click next. And now on the next, you can see we are on step 2 and the global data. This is the global data, how it looks like. And you can see we have this global data even in this. You can see this is coming from educational background line 16. We still have the global data, all of it. If I go to the previous, of course previous is not yet working, and we can make previous button work by writing a function. So go to the navigation buttons. Let's write this here. I'm just going to say function handle previous, and here what I just want, I have to get the current state. Okay, what are we going to do is getting the current state -1. So just going to say dispatch. So you have to first get here const dispatch is equal to use dispatch from Redux, and then you're just going to come here and say we're going to dispatch an action. So dispatch the set current state, and we set to the current state -1. Okay, so just as simple as that. So and then we just come here to this, and then we give it on click. So you say on click, then you just say handle previous. Okay, so now we can handle the previous. We have here education background. If I click previous, you can still go back, but where is our data? And we can see the data is in the state. If you go back to this to the previous personal, the data is there, but it is not in the state. You get, it is not filled in here. This is the problem I was going to show you. Okay, if someone goes to the previous, or and they go to, of course they're asking you now the data which was supposed to be there already. So to do that, we can just go ahead and update in the state. Okay, so get this data that we have in the state, the form data. Okay, get this form data, and let's pass this form data into the use form, if the use form hook. So come here and they say default values. So we can set the default values to an object by just spreading this form data. So only doing that, we have a way of keeping all our data, and it will be populating it automatically. So let me just refresh, start afresh. Okay, and we're just going to do this also for, okay, we're just also going to do this for the next step, which is this education background. So just go here for the education background. So we just come here in the use form, let's pass in this. Okay, we already have the form data, we can just go ahead and pass it in here. So now after doing that, you just say here, and let's go ahead and refresh. And let me just use fake filter here. Go to the next step. Okay, we can fill in information, fill in, and let's go to the previous. So you go to the previous, you have all your data in state. Okay, we have all the data in state. Go to the next. Now the next, we had not gone to the, we had not saved it in state because we did not click on the next, because we only save when you click on next. You could even just call it like save and continue. You could just say this here in the nav button. You could call this next button and call it like save and continue. Okay, just like this. So this one just becomes like save and continue, and you can see they used it here on this the national. You see it, you use save and continue, and then there is also continue that saving. Okay, so this is great. So now if we fill in some data, and we click next. Of course, we go to this programming experience, and we don't have yet this this form. Now, for the purposes of really making this easy, I'm just going to pause for a second, add in all these steps, and then I'll be back. So I went ahead and added in all the data, all the form inputs for the remaining steps. Now this is how our form looks like. If you just go to the first step, personal info, you see we have all these forms. Now you can just go ahead and add fake filler, go down, go to next, and you can see our data onto this. It is populating, and the step is updated to step number 2. Now we add in the education info, and then we click on next. Now we have the step are updated to 3, and we can see that the information is now updated. We have in the one for the first case and the second case. We can go ahead and add in also this programming experience and click next. Now we go to the first step, and you can see here we select here Python and click next, and then we have this step. This is supposed to be technical skills and assessment. Technical skill assessment, step number 5. Technical skill, this is one of the ones I've added. Okay, so just go here and see the heading is supposed to be technical skills, just like that, technical skills assessment. Okay, and then you can just even remove the genders and all that. So we shall have this one changing to technical skills. Let me fake fill it, go to the next. Now you see we are on the last step, which is submit and confirm, and you see I have all the data that we fed in from step number 1. Okay, you can see I have all the data that we fed in from the beginning. I have all this data here. Okay, you can even go to the previous, and you see you still have ability to change your data. Okay, for instance, how do you rank yourself? Let me just come here and I say beginner, and now let me go to next, and if you see rank of experience has changed to beginner. Okay, and this is really nice, whereby someone can go to the previous steps and they can change. Okay, they now go back, and you can see that now preferred languages has changed to JavaScript. Okay, so this is really a nice app to really know how to do this, and I find it very useful if you are showing it to a person, or if you just are going to implement it on any website. Okay, so let me just once again say what we have done. The one more important thing we have just used is Redux, and Redux is helping us to keep the state, and this is really simple. You can see you create a slice, you initiate the current step and the form data. If you wanted, you could go ahead and add the steps here. Okay, if you wanted, you could go ahead and add the steps here. Okay, you could go ahead and add the steps here, and like the array we specified, you could go ahead and add this. The steps, you could also add them here, so that you change them from one place. Instead of adding them in the page, you could just add this array from here. Okay, could add this array from here. That is one thing. Another thing that you can do is one. Now you could attach for every step here, you could go ahead and append it onto this here on the URL. You could put, for instance, question mark, and then you say, for instance, step is equal to 2. If this step equal to 1, you could just go ahead and append this, and this one could be helping when you want to resume. Okay, in the future when you want to resume, you can just go ahead and say resume where step is equal to 3. You could resume to where step equal to 5, where step is equal to 6. You could resume that, you could work on that, and that one you could use the router.push. Every time we go to the next step, you could get you could just get here where we are having the forms. Let me just show you one of the forms. So at this step here, you could just now update the URL. So you could, okay, after that you could go ahead and update the URL, update the URL using router.push, and then you push the current step. Okay, you could push the current step and you push the next page. Okay, I would want to see someone who have added that functionality, or he has extended that functionality in the app. Okay, thank you much for watching this episode. We have come to the last part of this. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.